You can't always catch a legend live, especially in rock where so many left the stage too soon. But you can visit the places where their stories ended.
Said tonight they were planning a big musical event dedicated to their lead singer, Freddie Mercury, who died last night of AIDS.
Standing at a gravesite isn't just quiet reflection. It's a kind of connection. These were the voices that lit up our headphones and haunted our speakers, now resting in places as iconic or unexpected as they were. From towering memorials to hidden headstones, here's where rock's greatest found their final encore. Jimi Hendrix died at just 27, and more than 50 years later, the questions still haven't stopped. He passed away on September 18, 1970, in London, after taking sleeping pills and drinking red wine. His partner at the time, Monica Dannemann, gave conflicting accounts of what happened that night. Officially, Hendrix choked on his own vomit. Unofficially, it's a story full of gaps. After his death, his body was flown home to Seattle, and he was buried at Greenwood Memorial Park in Renton, Washington. The grave was simple, marked with a small headstone. For decades, fans made pilgrimages there, leaving guitar picks, flowers, and handwritten notes. But in 1999, Jimi's father, Al Hendrix, announced plans for something bigger, a 27-foot granite memorial, part funded by fans and adorned with etched portraits, lyrics, and a domed roof supported by 3 pillars. Jimi was exhumed and moved there in 2002, a decision some close friends opposed, calling it unnecessary and disrespectful. But today the site has become a sanctuary. Visitors still come from all over the world to stand beneath that dome. And when the wind moves just right, it almost sounds like feedback from a Stratocaster.
Some came along, 100 grams to hold up.
You can't stand over Janis Joplin's grave, because there isn't one. After her death from a heroin overdose on October 4th, 1970, just weeks after Jimi Hendrix, her body was cremated. Only 10 people were at the ceremony in Westwood Village Mortuary, and 2 days later, her ashes were scattered in the Pacific Ocean off Marin County. No marker, no monument, just the waves. Joplin had requested that kind of farewell, quiet, unglamorous, almost anonymous. But she remains impossible to forget. Her death, at just 27, echoed with a finality that shook the music world. She had been the queen of psychedelic soul, a force of nature on stage, and heartbreak incarnate behind the scenes.
Someplace those cats always wandered off to. I never figured out exactly where it was.
In the end, her last known address became something of a shrine. Room 105 at the Landmark Hotel in Hollywood, now the Highland Gardens, is where she spent her final night. Today, it's a strange kind of pilgrimage spot. The closet door bears a plaque, and inside, fans have covered the walls with handwritten tributes, lyrics, and grief. You can't lay flowers at her grave, but you can listen to that voice, raw, cracked, defiant, still crashing like surf against silence. Jim Morrison didn't just die young, he vanished into legend. On July 3rd, 1971, the Lizard King was found dead in the bathtub of his Paris apartment. Official cause, heart failure.
The death of another rock musician was disclosed today. Jim Morrison, 27 years old, lead singer of The Doors.
But like so many rock deaths, the story splinters. Some claim he overdosed on heroin in a nightclub restroom and was quietly brought home by dealers. No autopsy was ever performed. In death, Morrison became even more unknowable. He was buried in Paris's Père Lachaise Cemetery, already a resting place for icons like Oscar Wilde, Edith Piaf, and Chopin. And yet, Morrison's grave became one of the most visited on Earth. His bronze plaque, etched with his name and an ancient Greek inscription chosen by his father, Kata ton daimona eautou, invites interpretation. Most read it as true to his own spirit. Others say true to his own demons. Either one fits. What began as a simple grave evolved into a shrine, a battleground for devotion and defacement. Fans leave candles, joints, poems. Authorities once tried fencing it off. It didn't work. Morrison still draws crowds, not just for the music, but for the mystery. He didn't just live on the edge. He was buried there too. George Harrison didn't want fanfare. As the Beatles' quiet one, he faced death the same way he lived, privately, spiritually, and on his own terms. Harrison died on November 29, 2001, after a long battle with cancer that began in his throat, spread to his lungs, and eventually his brain.
Sorry, I mean, we're all going to die one day, but I'm not going to die for you quite yet.
He was 58 and had spent his final days surrounded by family and chanting from his spiritual guides. A devoted follower of the Hare Krishna movement, Harrison had prepared for death with the calm certainty of someone who believed it wasn't the end, just a transition. In keeping with Hindu customs, his body was cremated within hours of his passing, reportedly at Hollywood Forever Memorial Park. But what happened next was cloaked in quiet mystery. Early reports said his ashes would be scattered in the Ganges and Yamuna rivers in India, sacred places in Hindu belief. Fans flocked to Varanasi, cameras ready. But the Harrison family, true to George's wishes, waited until the noise faded. The exact timing and location were never confirmed, and that feels right. His ashes likely flow through the sacred rivers now, not in spectacle, but in peace, just as he wanted. Cass Elliott's voice was pure sunshine, warm, soaring, unforgettable. But her death at 32 was quickly shrouded in rumor and cruelty. When she died on July 29, 1974 in a London flat, her manager rushed to quash whispers of drug use by telling the press she'd choked on a ham sandwich. That lie stuck, fueled by body-shaming jokes that haunted her legacy for decades. But the truth, far more human. Cass died of heart failure, likely the result of extreme dieting and long-term drug use, not food. She passed away alone in an apartment owned by fellow musician Harry Nilsson, who was overseas at the time. 4 years later, The Who's drummer Keith Moon would die in the same flat, adding fuel to talk of a curse. Spooked, Nilsson sold it to Moon's own bandmate, Pete Townsend. Cass's body was flown home and buried at Mount Sinai Memorial Park in Los Angeles. Her grave is simple, marked with her name, dates, and the inscription, Cass Elliot. No frills, no spectacle. Just a quiet plot in California for a woman whose voice helped define a generation, and whose story deserves more kindness than myth.
Dream a little dream of me.
John Lennon wanted peace, in his music, in the world, and in his private life. That's why, in 1971, he left England and settled in New York City with Yoko Ono. The Dakota, a Gothic apartment building on Central Park West, became his sanctuary. But on December 8, 1980, it also became the place where he was killed.
14 hours since John Lennon was shot here at the entrance to the Dakota building on West 72nd Street in the center of New York.
Shot by Mark David Chapman outside the building's entrance, Lennon died within minutes. He was 40. No funeral followed, no burial plot. Lennon's body was cremated, and Yoko Ono never disclosed the exact location of his ashes, but most believe she scattered them in Central Park, in a spot that would later become sacred ground. On what would have been his 45th birthday, October 9, 1985, Ono helped dedicate a section of the park as Strawberry Fields. It's a quiet zone, landscaped with winding paths, benches, and at its heart, a circular mosaic that simply reads, Imagine. A gift from Naples, Italy, the memorial draws millions. Fans leave flowers, sing Beatles songs, and cry. Lennon has no gravestone, but he doesn't need one. His memory lives right where he walked, dreamt, and ultimately, where he became part of New York forever. Kurt Cobain's death in April 1994 didn't just mark the end of Nirvana. It felt like the end of something bigger.
A few weeks before his death, the lead singer of the band Nirvana overdosed on painkillers and alcohol. But the final blow came from the barrel of a gun, and it was a shot.
He was found in his Seattle home on April 8th, 3 days after dying by suicide. He was only 27. The grief was raw, and so was the mythology that immediately followed. But while the world speculated, Courtney Love was already setting the terms of Kurt's farewell, one that was personal, spiritual, and unconventional. Cobain's body was cremated, and Love divided the ashes. Some were scattered into the Wishkah River in Washington, near his childhood home, the same river he sang about in Nirvana's From the Muddy Banks of the Wishkah. Another portion went with her to a Buddhist monastery in Ithaca, New York, where monks mixed the ashes with clay to form satsas, small, gold-painted, cone-shaped sculptures meant for sacred shrines. And the rest? She reportedly kept them in a teddy bear-shaped handbag alongside her wedding dress. There's no grave to visit, no polished monument, but for those who still feel Kurt's presence, it's fitting. His ashes, like his music, were scattered, part river, part ritual, part ghost that never really left.
Well, I just might grow me some bees, but I'd leave the sweet stuff.
Frank Zappa's final act was as subversive as the rest of his life. When the avant-garde rock legend died of prostate cancer on December 4, 1993, at just 52, his family issued a simple, fitting statement. Composer Frank Zappa left for his final tour just before 6 p.m. Saturday. That was it. No fanfare, no final bow. Just a quiet exit from a man who never played by the rules. Zappa was laid to rest at Westwood Village Memorial Park in Los Angeles, a cemetery known for its celebrity lineup: Marilyn Monroe, Dean Martin, Truman Capote, Natalie Wood. It's an oddly traditional place for a figure so allergic to tradition, but Zappa's grave has one twist. It's unmarked. No name, no dates, just grass. He's buried near Roy Orbison, who also rests in an unmarked plot. The exact location isn't publicly confirmed, and the family's never explained the choice. But it makes sense. Zappa railed against commercialism, fame, worship, and formula. Even in death, he chose invisibility over idolatry. You can walk right past him and never know, and somehow that's exactly the point. The music still screams, the man disappears, just as he wanted.
As long as he was hanging around, I said, the price of meat has just gone up.
Some stories are written in melody, and Johnny and June's was a duet from beginning to end. Their love started backstage at the Grand Ole Opry in 1956, when Johnny Cash, still climbing the charts, met June Carter, a star in her own right. Both were married, but something sparked. Years later, June would write Ring of Fire about the painful magnetic pull she felt for him.
I fell into a ring of fire.
The world knew it as a hit. She knew it as Confession. They married in 1968 after Cash's divorce and a very public proposal in front of 7,000 people. For 35 years, they were soulmates in song and struggle, touring, recording, raising a family, and weathering addiction, fame, and faith. June Carter Cash died on May 15, 2003, at 73.
We learned this morning of the death of an American music icon. Johnny Cash is dead at the age of 71.
Johnny followed just 4 months later, on September 12th. The man in black had lost his light. Today they rest side by side at Hendersonville Memory Gardens in Tennessee, just miles from where their story began. Their headstone is simple, but it doesn't need to be ornate. Their lives were the monument. And even now, people still come to that quiet corner to stand between two legends who always belonged together. Eddie Van Halen didn't just play guitar, he reimagined it. From finger-tapping solos to ear-shredding innovation, He turned electricity into art. But behind the spotlight was a man quietly battling for his life. Diagnosed with throat cancer in 2000, Eddie said it was gone by 2004. But in truth, it came back, stronger. In 2017, he was told he had 6 weeks to live. He made it 3 more years. He sought advanced treatments in Germany. He kept playing. He kept fighting. But on October 6, 2020, Eddie Van Halen died of lung cancer at age 65.
Few could match his speed or his influence to an entire generation of guitarists.
By then, he'd also developed a brain tumor discovered after a motorcycle crash. It was a brutal ending to a life lived full throttle. Eddie didn't want a grave, he didn't want mourning. What he wanted, according to his son Wolfgang, was to return to the Pacific. His ashes were scattered off the coast of Malibu, where he lived, played, and found peace. There's no headstone to visit, but fans still gather at the beach, guitars in hand, letting the ocean carry their chords. Eddie asked for a simple goodbye. Instead, he got a shoreline full of love. Freddie Mercury spent his life commanding the world's biggest stages, but in death, he wanted no audience at all. Diagnosed with AIDS in 1987, he knew his time was limited, and he planned carefully. He asked to be cremated and told only one person, Mary Austin, his closest friend and former fiancée, where he wanted his ashes scattered. Not his family, not his bandmates, just Mary. "I don't want anyone to dig me up," he told her. "I just want to rest in peace."
He said tonight they were planning a big musical event dedicated to their lead singer, Freddie Mercury, who died last night of AIDS.
Freddie died on November 24, 1991, at the age of 45. He was cremated at Kensal Green Cemetery in northwest London. But it took 2 years for Mary to carry out his final wish. She waited until she was sure no one was watching. In 2013, a mysterious plaque was discovered in the cemetery, bearing Mercury's birth name, Farrokh Bulsara, and a French inscription, "Always to be, close to you with all my love." M fans speculated M stood for Mary. She denied it. To this day, no one knows where Freddie's ashes lie, and that's the way he wanted it. His voice lives forever, but his final resting place is a secret, kept in love and kept in silence. Some left behind headstones, others chose waves, shrines, or silence. But every one of these legends made the same final request, to rest on their terms. In cities and rivers, in shrines and secret places, their bodies may be gone, but their echoes aren't. You can still feel them. In a lyric, a guitar riff, or a quiet moment in front of a stone. If you've made it this far, you clearly value remembering. So let's keep doing it together. Hit subscribe for more stories like these. And tell me in the comments, which final resting place moved you most?